Welcome on board, chosen one. Step in, wipe your feet on the ruins of everything they said you'd never survive, and get comfortable, because this ride is about to expose some people who thought they had you all figured out. Funny, right? The same mouths that once whispered, "You're predictable, you're easy to read, you're nothing special," are now shaking in the dark because every move you make bends their reality. Look who's panicking. Look who's refreshing your page like their life depends on it. Look who suddenly can't sleep unless they know what you're doing next. Oh, the legend has arrived, and apparently the world forgot how to breathe. When they said you'd break, you didn't. When they said you'd cry, you wiped your face and kept walking. When they laughed, the universe saved the punchline for later, and now it's hitting them in the ribs, hard. They thought you were a side character, they thought you were an NPC, and now they're studying your patterns like a serial killer with a wall full of red strings, trying to connect dots that don't even belong on the same map. They're squinting at screenshots, replaying old conversations, dissecting your silence like it's some top-secret file. You turned their confidence into paranoia. You turned their opinions into regrets. If you're feeling this already, press the like button and subscribe to pay this message back. You showing support strengthens the whole mission, and trust me, it's a mission they never wanted you to survive. Now listen closely. The air around you changed, didn't it? There's this eerie calm that shows up after someone rises from the ashes when everyone swore you'd stay buried. The silence that follows you now isn't emptiness. It's fear. The same people who once walked toward you with their chest out are tiptoeing behind you now, whispering theories like you're some unsolved case. You became their storm, and they're standing in the aftermath pretending they didn't see it coming. And don't think this is new. You've been doing this your whole life. Remember when you were younger, how people always acted like you were weird? How they stared at you like you were hiding something. You were hiding power. You were hiding endurance. You were hiding a version of yourself that wasn't ready to be unleashed yet. They thought you were quiet because you were weak. They didn't realize silence is a weapon when it belongs to someone who doesn't beg for attention, someone who doesn't need validation to feel alive. There's a moment, always, in every chosen one's life when the world realizes it underestimated the wrong person. For you, that moment has been building for years, through those nights where you fought battles nobody saw. Through the days when you held yourself together while someone else enjoyed watching you fall apart. Through the times when you were the joke, the target, the underestimated one. They never understood the kind of mind you have. The kind that learns people like textbooks. The kind that observes before striking. The kind that calculates before speaking. And because you never bragged about what you know, they assumed you knew nothing. Now look at them scrambling. These same enemies who said you were basic are trying to dissect your silence like it's a crime scene. They're running simulations in their head. What does it mean if they didn't reply? Why did they block me? Why are they suddenly glowing? They're asking their friends for advice about you, like you're a puzzle they can't solve. And here's the funniest part. The more they study you, the more confused they become. They're looking for patterns in someone who reinvented themselves every time the world tried to break them. And there's something poetic about that. You lived through moments that should have shattered you, but instead they sharpened you. You held your own when people threw doubt at you like knives. You stayed loyal when others used you as a temporary convenience. You stayed human while they played games. And now you are the one they fear, because there's nothing more terrifying than someone who doesn't react the way the world expects. Someone who doesn't fold. someone who doesn't crawl back. Here's the truth they don't want to admit. You became unpredictable the moment you stopped needing them, the moment you chose yourself, the moment you realized that your power wasn't in proving them wrong, but in walking away while they begged the universe for closure. You are the aftermath of every storm they pretended not to see forming. You are the living reminder that they misread the wrong soul. And now, here's the twist that stings them the most. They didn't lose you because you were easy. They lost you because they couldn't understand you. They couldn't handle you. They couldn't match you. They tried to study your patterns like you were some case file, but every time they thought they solved you, you evolved into someone stronger. That's why they're scared. That's why they're obsessed. That's why they're watching you like a detective who knows the killer is smarter than them. You're not hiding. You're not running. You're simply existing in a way they never saw coming. And that's the real threat. They know you're outgrowing their version of you. They know you're done shrinking. They know the universe is moving pieces in your favor, and they can't crack the code because the code was never meant for them. Before we go any further, Chosen One, lock in for a second. If you've made it this deep, it means you already know something is shifting around you. You feel the eyes on you. You feel the tension in the air. You feel the universe rearranging the room every time you walk in, because someone out there is still trying to crack a code they were never smart enough to read. So here's your moment to step forward, to claim your seat in this twisted little investigation they built around you. Drop a comment with 777 if you're ready to let them watch, panic and fail while you rise anyway. Press like, hit subscribe, reinforce this growing force of chosen ones who refuse to be simplified into someone else's little pattern chart. And now we move step by step, deeper into the truth they never wanted you to hear. If you really are who I think you are, you'll feel that pull in your chest telling you not to click away. Because people like you don't skip their own story. You stay. You witness. You transform. Let's get started. Number 1. The move they never see coming. Funny how they called you predictable right before you blew their whole prediction model to pieces. They hate this part, the part where you stop dancing to the rhythm they thought they set, the part where you take one quiet step to the left and their entire theory about you collapses like a cheap stage prop. They didn't lose control of the situation. They lost control of you, and that is a humiliation they will never admit out loud. What tears them up inside isn't your unpredictability. It's the fact that your unpredictability is intentional, sharp, and way too smart for their little minds to contain. You're not chaotic. You're strategic, and that alone turns them into malfunctioning robots who can't compute your next move, no matter how many times they replay your past. Every time they swear, "I know exactly what they'll do next," you switch lanes without signaling. You shift energy. You shift pace. You shift direction. You shed skins they didn't even know you were wearing. And suddenly, they're standing there, holding outdated versions of you, wondering how they got left behind in a story they thought they were controlling. It's almost poetic. They studied you like an equation, and you responded like a glitch that rewrites the whole system. They try slapping labels on you, hoping to box you in. Maybe they're anxious. Wrong. Maybe they're avoidant. Cute. Try. Maybe they're an empath. Getting warmer, but still clueless. Maybe they're narcissistic. And now they're just embarrassing themselves. You're none of those things, and all of them, depending on the day and the situation. You're fluid in a way their static minds can't decode. You don't fit their files. You don't match their patterns. You don't color inside lines because you were never meant to exist inside their coloring book in the first place. You are the exception that ruins their theories. You're the evidence that breaks their investigation. You're the secret door they didn't know existed until you walked through it. You're the plot twist that exposes how little they ever understood in the first place. And that drives them absolutely insane. Because here's the truth they choke on. The more they try to predict you, the more unpredictable you become. Not because you're trying to confuse them, but because you're evolving faster than they can keep up. They're studying a past version of you while the present version is already 10 miles ahead. They're analyzing a ghost while the real you keeps upgrading in silence. Imagine how humiliating that is for them, watching you grow out of reach while they stay stuck in their old definition of you. And I know what's crossing your mind now. Why does it bother them so much? Why do they care this deeply? Simple, predictable people are easy to manipulate, and you, chosen one, stopped being manipulatable the second you realized your power. The moment you stopped reacting, they lost their leash. The moment you stopped explaining yourself, they lost their script. The moment you stopped playing their game, they lost their advantage. You became an unsolvable riddle, and let's be honest, nothing enrages small minds more than a riddle they can't solve. They stalk your silence like it's a clue. They dissect your pauses like they hide meaning. They replay your unpredictability like a secret message is encoded somewhere they're too dumb to find. It's hilarious. They examine your absence, your timing, your patterns, your breaks in routine, your sudden switches in behavior, and every little shift convinces them you're up to something big. They're not wrong. You are. You're not unpredictable because you're lost. You're unpredictable because you've outgrown their access. Your silence is calibrated. Your distance is intentional. Your reactions are chosen, not impulsive. You shift because you want to shift, not because you're confused or broken. And here's the real kicker. You move with purpose, even when you look still. There's a strategy in the madness, a rhythm in the quiet, a blueprint in your pauses. They think you disappear when you're silent. They don't know silence is your disguise while you hit your next upgrade. The universe gave you this gift, the ability to reinvent yourself without announcing it, the ability to move without leaving footprints, the ability to change direction without losing yourself. You're like a shadow that learns new shapes every time someone tries to grab it. You don't just avoid their expectations. You demolish them, step over the pieces, and keep walking. That's why they study you like a serial killer's pattern board. That's why they stare at your moves like detectives losing their minds. That's why they call their friends to decode your silence. They can't accept that the story moved on without them. They can't accept that you're no longer the person they underestimated. They can't accept that your unpredictability is just your growth wearing a different outfit. You're not chaos, you're evolution, and evolution terrifies people who stay the same. Sometimes you shift because you outgrow people. Sometimes you shift because the universe pulls you toward better things. Sometimes you shift because you refuse to let anyone read your playbook ever again. And sometimes you shift simply because you're bored of being predictable to people who aren't even worth impressing. You know the real reason they can't crack the code? Because the code was never meant for them. It was meant for you. You are the only one who understands your logic, your timing, your pace, your reasoning. They think unpredictability is your weakness, but it's your shield. It's your signature move. It's the trait that keeps you safe from people who want to use, study, exploit, or control you. And yes, they're frustrated, they're confused, they're embarrassed, they're intimidated, but deep down, they're also obsessed. Your unpredictability is magnetic because it exposes the limits of their understanding. It forces them to confront the fact that they underestimated someone who ended up smarter, calmer, colder, and stronger than they ever expected. But here's what makes you dangerous. You're not unpredictable to yourself. You know exactly why you move the way you do. You know why you disappear when things get loud. You know why you switch pace when you sense something off. You know why you guard your inner world like it's a vault. And the universe knows too. That's why you keep winning battles they don't see. That's why you keep slipping through traps they built. That's why you keep surviving storms that should have taken you out. You didn't come this far to be read like a diary. You came this far to become unreadable. And that, chosen one, is what will always keep you untouchable. They're studying your patterns like a serial killer, and they still can't crack the code because the code refuses to exist long enough for them to solve it. You are the update they can't download, the file they can't open, the glitch that becomes the whole system. You are the move they never see coming. Number 2, they don't want to understand you. They want your blueprint. They don't want to read you. They want to download you like software they didn't pay for. People don't study mysteries to admire them. They study them because they want the power that created them. Jealousy isn't loud, it takes notes. If they could unzip your mind and wear it like a jacket, trust me, they would. Here's the secret nobody ever told you, chosen one. Half the people pretending they're so confused by you aren't confused at all. They're obsessed, they're hungry, they're desperate to figure out how someone like you even exists. They don't want to understand you. Understanding requires humility. They want to be you. And that requires stealing, that requires studying, that requires copying your every move like a bootleg version that never matches the original. Imagine this. Someone watches you walk into a room with quiet confidence you didn't even notice you had. They study the way people shift when you speak. They replay your jokes, your timing, the way you hold your boundaries without flinching. They think, if I learn how they do it, maybe I'll finally matter. They don't realize your presence wasn't built in a week. It was built through storms they never saw, nights that almost destroyed you, and choices that would have snapped them in half. They're not admiring you, they're attempting a robbery. Every fake friend who checked in wasn't actually checking in. They were checking your temperature, checking your mood, checking your glow, checking whether the upgrade they sensed last week was real. Every conversation they steered toward your past wasn't curiosity. It was data collection. What hurt them? What shaped them? What triggers them? They want the recipe, the formula, the blueprint. They want the cheat codes to the level you bled your way through. Imagine this, a student scribbling every detail from a master they secretly resent. That's them. They're trying to mimic your silence, but theirs feels bitter. They're trying to mimic your confidence, but theirs collapses under pressure. They're trying to mimic your independence, but theirs is held together with tape and insecurity. They want your glow without the healing. They want your strength without the scars. They want your clarity without facing the mirror that almost broke you. And that's what rots them from the inside. They want results they never paid the price for. You didn't just become you. You were carved. You were crushed. You were rebuilt. You evolved through every moment where the universe forced you to face truths that would have ruined anyone weaker. They want the final version of you, not the process. They want the crown, not the weight. They want the throne, not the cold nights where you sat alone, figuring out who you were without anyone cheering for you. And I know exactly what you're wondering right now. Why would they want to be me when they treated me like I was nothing before? Because people don't envy you when you're struggling. They envy you when you survive. Remember the times they dismissed you. Remember the smirks, the side comments, the jokes made at your expense. They did that because they assumed you would stay beneath them. They didn't predict that you would rise. They didn't predict that your transformation would expose their stagnation. They didn't predict that the person they mocked would become the standard they measure themselves against. Imagine this: two people running the same race. One trained in silence, one laughed in arrogance. Guess who wins? Guess who panics? Guess who suddenly wants to copy the winner's breathing, stride, discipline, mindset? That's them. Your rise is their crisis. Your evolution is their nightmare. Your unpredictability is their insecurity. Here's a truth that hits them harder than karma ever will. You can't fake what pain taught you. You can't copy resilience. You can't imitate authenticity. You can't rehearse real growth. You can't steal a mindset forged under pressure they never survived. They want your peace, but they're not willing to sit alone with their demons long enough to earn it. They want your intuition, but they skip the inner work that shaped it. They want your emotional intelligence, but they avoid accountability like it's poison. They want your balance, but they tremble at the thought of losing people you had to let go. Imagine this: a person trying to wear your life like a costume. They put on your habits, your phrases, your confidence, your silence, but it never fits. It never works. It looks awkward because it's not theirs. They're wearing armor they didn't forge. They're imitating a journey they never walked. Your identity isn't a template. Your evolution isn't a trend. Your strength isn't a performance. It's lived experience. They can study you for years, and it still won't give them access to the internal world that shaped you. They don't want to understand that part because understanding requires them to confront their own lack of growth. They want shortcuts, hacks, loopholes. They want to copy your confidence without facing the moments that shattered you before you rebuilt yourself. And here's another gut punch for them. You survived things they would have quit over. They want your intelligence, but they don't want the loneliness of being misunderstood. They want your intuition, but not the heartbreak that sharpened it. They want your independence, but not the abandonment that taught it. They want your glow, but not the darkness that forced you to create it. And this is why they can't be you. They never paid your price. Until they live your story, until they bleed your lessons, until they stand alone in the places you stood, they will always be a blurry, low-quality imitation of a masterpiece carved from real pain. Let me tell you something even sharper. People only try to become you when they realize they'll never replace you. That's the root of their obsession. That's the reason for their constant studying, stalking, mirroring, adjusting, copying. They're not inspired. They're intimidated. They're trying to recreate the magic because they know they can't access the source. Imagine this: a scientist trying to clone a mythical creature. They have the tools, they have the samples, but the spark, the essence, the soul of it, untouchable, unreachable, unrepeatable, that's you. They're studying your patterns like a serial killer, but not to analyze danger, to steal power. But here's the punchline the universe kept to itself. Power built on mimicry collapses. Power built on authenticity multiplies. They want your blueprint, chosen one, but even if you handed it to them, they still wouldn't become you. Because you aren't a formula, you're a phenomenon. You aren't a pattern, you're an evolution. You aren't a trend, you're a transformation in human form. Let them study, let them copy, Let them take notes like desperate students hoping to cheat on a test they didn't study for. They can chase your shadow forever, but they will never touch your light. Number 3, the obsession that burns through their mind. They don't miss you, they spiral over you. Obsession isn't romantic. It's the scream of someone losing control. A person isn't dangerous until they stop caring. That's when the other side starts to panic. Here's where things get twisted, chosen one. Their obsession stopped being cute a long time ago and crossed straight into psychological territory. They wake up with you in their head like an alarm they never set. They scroll past dozens of faces just to see if you left a trace of yourself online. They read your captions like coded messages. They analyze your silence like it's a crime scene. They replay your old conversations, trying to decode moments you forgot about. They compare every new person to you, and every single one fails the test. Imagine this. Someone digging through memories like files, searching for what they missed, trying to map your mind like detectives cracking an unsolved case. They're furious because the one person who never chased them has become the one they can't stop chasing. Their ego is bleeding. Their confidence is glitching. Their mind is running simulations of you like you're a puzzle they didn't know would haunt them. And the punchline? You're not even playing. You're not chasing, baiting, or hinting. You know they're watching, and you genuinely don't care. Not because you're arrogant, but because you evolved past needing their validation. You're operating on a frequency their insecurity can't detect. That's what terrifies them most. You moved on, and their mind never did. Number 4. The reflection that shatters their ego. Some people don't break when they look in the mirror. They break when the mirror finally tells the truth. You didn't expose them, your existence did. Nothing is more painful than realizing the person you judged is the person you wish you were. Here's the real twist, chosen one. They thought they were studying you like a detective with too much free time and not enough skill. But somewhere along the way, the case flipped. You stopped being their subject and became their reflection, the one mirror they can't escape, crack, or walk away from. Every time they examine your confidence, they feel the sting of their own insecurity. Every time they analyze your boundaries, they see the places where they let everyone walk over them. Every time they dissect your peace, they're dragged face to face with the chaos they created for themselves. Imagine this. They pull out a magnifying glass to study you, expecting flaws. But all they find is their own weakness staring back at them. That's why they get angry. That's why they stay obsessed. You're not trying to make them feel small. You don't have time for that. But your bigness, your evolution, your refusal to shrink, makes their shrinking impossible to ignore. They don't envy your success. They envy your freedom. They don't want your life. They want the version of themselves that never showed up. And that's what burns them alive. Every time they look at you, they see the person they could have been. Number 5. The code they'll spend a lifetime chasing. Everyone wants the crown. Only a few survive what it costs. They want your power, but they couldn't handle the nights that created it. People don't envy your life. They envy your scars because yours healed. You're not a blueprint. You're a battle they never fought. Chosen one. Let's slice this open, clean. They're desperate for your formula, like there's some hidden manual you memorized while they were busy pretending to be confident. They want your blueprint, your mindset, your secret switch. But what they don't understand is the most brutal truth of all. You didn't become this through strategy. You became this through survival. Imagine this, someone studying a diamond, trying to learn how to sparkle, never realizing it became a diamond by surviving pressure that would have crushed them instantly. That's you. They stare at the glow, but ignore the darkness that forced you to build your own light. They want the results, not the road. The shine, not the shattering. The crown, not the thorns. They don't see you trusting yourself when no one believed in you. They don't see the nights you sat alone, rebuilding your mind piece by piece while the world thought you were fine. They don't see the moments you almost gave up, but didn't. They think your power is a trick, a hack, a method. And here's the line that slices their ego in half. There is no shortcut to becoming you, no hack, no cheat code, no map. The only path to authentic power is losing everything that isn't really you. And most people will never be brave enough to face that kind of demolition. You didn't learn this, you survived it, and that's why they'll never catch up. Number 6. The switch that put them on stage. They used to judge you from the balcony. Now they're dancing for your attention like the show was theirs to begin with. Nothing hurts a performer more than realizing the audience stopped clapping. You didn't flip the script. Their insecurity did. When the watcher becomes the watched, panic becomes their personality. Chosen one, here's where the universe gets petty in your favor. The role reversal has officially begun, and they're choking on it. The same people who once acted untouchable now curate their entire existence around one pathetic question. Will this make you notice me? Every post, every caption, every overly polished selfie, every story timed for maximum impact. It's all performance art aimed straight at your eyes. Imagine this. Someone who once swore they didn't care about you, now rehearsing their every move like you're a judge holding their fate. You turned the tables without lifting a finger. You didn't chase. You didn't beg. You didn't play. You simply elevated, and suddenly they became the entertainment. And here's the line that really destroys them. They measure themselves against you now, and they lose every time. They check your page before posting theirs. They compare their glow to yours. They analyze your silence like a critic studying a masterpiece. They're performing, sweating, panicking, hoping their act will pull your gaze for even a second. And the cruel joke, you're not even watching. The stage lights are on them, but the spotlight left with you. They became the observed, all because you outgrew the need to be seen. Number 7. The patterns that make their minds malfunction. They don't study your behavior. They study their failure to control it. Silence is your weapon. Their ego is the casualty. You're not unpredictable. You're just operating on a level they can't load. Some people don't fear losing you. They fear not understanding you. Chosen one, they're losing it over the way you move. They've turned your existence into a science project with zero results. They've studied how you respond to disrespect with silence instead of explosions. How you handle betrayal by disappearing instead of seeking revenge. How you deal with pain privately instead of performing it for sympathy. They analyze your reply time like timestamps hold the secrets of the universe. They break down your tone, your rhythm, your pattern, shifts like detectives who forgot they're not qualified for this job. Imagine this, a person staring at a combination lock, confident they're one click away from cracking it, not realizing the lock changes its code every time they blink. That's you. They're obsessed with your inconsistency, but they'll never admit the truth. You're not inconsistent. You're adaptive. You respond to energy, not expectation. You shift when the vibe shifts. You change direction when the universe whispers that something's off. You move According to signals, they don't have the sensitivity, depth, or emotional range to detect. They want you to act the same so they can predict you, control you, categorize you, but you're not a category, you're a variable, a system update, a moving target. They're still learning checkers. You're already thinking 10 moves ahead in chess, and that's why their obsession grows. You're the pattern they'll study forever, but never solve. Number 8, the fear that eats them alive. They don't fear losing you, they fear losing the illusion that they ever had power over you. Control collapses the moment the target stops reacting. You're not unmanageable, you're just unmanipulatable. The smartest move you ever made was choosing silence over submission. Chosen one, this is where their panic becomes almost cinematic. They can't control what they can't understand, and you, with your shifting rhythm and unreadable mind, are their worst nightmare. They rely on predictability to feel superior. They need patterns to feel powerful. They need reactions to feel relevant. But you broke the cycle. You changed the rules mid-game without announcing it, and now they're left holding strategies written for a version of you that no longer exists. Imagine this, someone trying to trap smoke with their hands. The harder they squeeze, the faster it slips away. That's what dealing with you feels like for them. They build cages, but you see the blueprint before the door even swings shut. They set emotional traps, but you walk around them with this calm, unnerving awareness that exposes their intentions instantly. They study your moves while you're busy decoding their motives with the precision of someone who's been betrayed enough times to recognize danger before it breathes. They can't fool you because you learned the language of manipulation by surviving it. They can't blindside you because you've already mapped the psychology behind their behavior. They can't play you because the moment you sense someone trying to steer your energy, you disconnect so fast it leaves their ego wobbling. And here's the part that destroys them from inside out. You know exactly who they are, and that's why you choose not to engage. Your absence is your refusal. Your silence is your verdict. Your distance is your protection. They wanted control. What they got was exposure. And that, chosen one, is a kind of defeat they never saw coming. Number 9, the meltdown. They can't hide anymore. When they can't crush you, they start creating stories to explain why you're uncrushable. People don't build theories about the weak. They build them about the dangerous. They're not diagnosing you, they're confessing their insecurity. You can't break someone who already rebuilt themselves. Chosen one, this is the stage where their obsession mutates into full-blown desperation. They start inventing narratives, diagnoses, personality theories, anything to make sense of a power they can't touch. They're just guarded. They think they're better. They're too mysterious. Every word exposes their fear. They're not trying to understand you anymore. They're trying to contain you, label you, shrink you. Because if they can't predict you, they can't control you. Imagine this, someone standing outside a vault, rattling the lock, convinced there's a flaw in the metal. They don't realize the vault was forged from your worst nights, your hardest losses, your darkest breakdowns. They're searching for cracks in a structure you already shattered once and rebuilt titanium strong. They're hunting for the old you, the one they underestimated, manipulated, laughed at, dismissed. But that version died in the fire they pushed you into. What they can't handle is this brutal truth. You already faced the monster they think will break you, and you walked out stronger. Their theories won't save them. Their narratives won't weaken you. Their obsession won't give them access to a person who evolved beyond their reach. They're studying a ghost now. The real you is someone they'll never catch. Number 10. The case they'll never close. They're not investigating you. They're investigating why their masks fall apart in your presence. Authenticity feels like witchcraft to people who only know performance. You're not unsolved. They're unevolved. The truth isn't hidden. They just refuse to look at it. Chosen one, they've turned your existence into a full-blown psychological investigation, and the desperation is hilarious. They replay every memory like it's courtroom evidence, every unexpected reaction, every calm silence, every message you chose not to answer gets pinned to their mental investigation board. They've built emotional spreadsheets, timelines, theories, even imaginary motives to explain why you don't operate like the puppets they're used to pulling. Imagine this: someone analyzing ocean waves with a calculator, convinced there must be a formula to control the tide. That's them. They think your silence is manipulation, your peace is strategy, your authenticity is mind games. They don't realize the punchline. You're not even mysterious, you're just real. And realness feels dangerous to people who've only survived by performing. You're not complicated, they're conditioned. You're not hard to read, they're blind to truth. You're not playing games, you just quit pretending. That's why they study you like an unsolved case, not because you're confusing, but because you expose everything fake in them simply by existing. Your honesty feels like a riddle. Your boundaries feel like rebellion. Your calm feels like a threat. And here's the fatal truth they'll choke on forever. You are the one code they'll never crack, because nothing about you was built for their understanding. Number 11. The breakpoint where they unravel completely. They didn't lose you, they lost the mask they wore around you. Nothing breaks a person faster than realizing their entire personality was a performance. You weren't the threat, their reflection was. Chosen one, this is the moment the story flips from obsession to collapse. They spent so long trying to map you, label you, decode you like some glitchy formula that just needed the right variables. And every attempt failed. Every theory fell apart. Every label slid off you like cheap tape. So now, desperate and exposed, they've turned the same microscope inward, not out of self-awareness, but out of panic. Imagine this: someone digging for treasure in your backyard, finding nothing, then panicking and digging into their own floorboards, hoping the gold magically teleported. That's them. They're not looking for clarity. They're looking for a personality transplant, yours. They want your composure, your instincts, your evolution. They want to download your courage, your emotional intelligence, your resilience. They want to steal the pieces of you they thought were simple until life showed them they were anything but. But here's the breakdown they'll never admit. They don't miss you. They miss who they pretended to be when you were around. You made them lift their standards just by existing. You made them behave better, think deeper, grow sharper. Being near you forced their fake identity to act real for once. And now that you're gone, the mask has nothing to attach to. It crumbles, it curls, it melts right off their face. Their crisis isn't heartbreak, it's identity collapse, because the version of themselves they performed so confidently, it only existed in your presence. And once you stopped feeding the illusion, they stopped recognizing themselves entirely. Number 12. The energy shift they never saw hitting them this hard. They didn't lose a person. They lost the atmosphere you carried. When you walked out, the lights didn't go off. They finally saw how dark their world already was. Some people don't crave you. They crave the upgraded version of themselves they only felt when you were nearby. Chosen one, this is the part where the universe flips the energy board on them. Your absence didn't create an empty space like they expected. It exposed the emptiness that was already there, the void they'd been patching with your presence, your warmth, your emotional intelligence, your steady aura they pretended didn't matter. The moment you pulled your energy back, everything in their world dimmed. Conversations feel rehearsed. Connections feel low quality. Their routines feel lifeless. Their little victories don't hit anymore because you were the one who amplified their sense of purpose just by existing in their orbit. Imagine this, a room that always felt bright, suddenly going dull the second someone turns off the lamp they never appreciated. They didn't want you. They wanted the reflection of themselves they only saw under your light. You made them feel smarter, calmer, kinder, more interesting. You made them step up just by being in the room. Your presence was the elevation they mistook for their own growth. And once that energy left, the floor dropped. Now they're meeting their real self, the unpolished, insecure, unmotivated version they kept hidden behind your glow. Without you raising the frequency, they finally see their true level, and it terrifies them. Number 13. The respect they never thought they'd be forced to give. They didn't change their mind about you. You changed the version of you they were allowed to talk to. People mock what threatens them until they need it to survive. Respect isn't earned through explanations, it's earned through evolution. Chosen one, here's the twist that bruises their ego the hardest. These were the same people who once laughed at your boundaries, rolled their eyes at your standards, mocked your values like you were naive for having them. They dismissed your silence as weakness, your distance as insecurity, your calm as passiveness. They thought you'd stay small. They swore you'd never gain respect because they assumed you'd never grow into someone who demanded it through sheer presence. But look at them now, quoting you, copying you, studying your reactions like lessons, trying to walk like you, talk like you, think like you. They try to embody your confidence, your poise, your emotional discipline, not because they admire you, but because life humbled them into realizing your way was the only one that actually worked. Imagine this, someone who once clowned your boundaries, now enforcing them with scripture-level seriousness. Someone who once mocked your silence, now practicing self-control. Someone who once belittled your values, now preaching them online like they invented the concept. Respect didn't come from your arguments or your explanations. It came from the moment you stopped shrinking to make them comfortable. You didn't demand respect. You became someone it was impossible not to respect. And nothing haunts them more than knowing you did it without their approval and without their permission. Number 14. The ending that destroyed their entire script. They prayed for your downfall and accidentally witnessed your resurrection. They weren't studying your patterns. They were waiting for the moment you finally shattered. The plot twist wasn't your survival. It was the version of you that walked out of the fire. Chosen one, this is the conclusion they never had the range to anticipate. They predicted your breakdown with full confidence, like spectators waiting for a tragedy they thought was inevitable. Every silence you gave, they misread as weakness. Every disappearance, they misread as defeat. Every shift in your behavior, they logged as evidence of collapse. They watched you like someone waiting for a structural failure in a building they assumed was already cracked. But instead of falling apart, you did the one thing their ego could never process. You evolved, harder, colder, clearer, unrecognizable, untouchable. Imagine this. They prepared funeral flowers, and you walked past them glowing like you just leveled up. They studied your patterns, expecting to catch your breaking point, not realizing your breaking point already happened, and forged a newer, sharper version of you they had no defense against. Now they're stuck in a psychological loop they can't escape, craving closure but terrified of facing you, wanting answers, but knowing every truth you carry would expose them. They can't move on because the ending they rehearsed in their heads never came true. And here's the final twist that rips their narrative apart. You weren't their unfinished chapter. They were your discarded footnote. You're not their unfinished story. They're yours. And now, here we are, the last page of a case they spent their whole sanity budget trying to solve. Every pattern they chased, every theory they invented, every meltdown they pretended wasn't happening, all of it led to one unavoidable truth. You were never the mystery. They were. You were never the unstable one. They were. You were never unpredictable. They just never evolved enough to understand someone operating above their emotional pay grade. Your life didn't crack under pressure. It crystallized. You became the version of yourself they secretly feared existed, the one they can't decode, can't control, and can't forget. And now the story ends exactly where it always should have, with you walking forward untouched while they're still flipping through pages of an investigation that never had a solution. Before you go, Chosen One, pay this message back. Hit that like, smash that subscribe, drop 77 in the comments, and share this with someone who needs their power back. You've seen the truth, you've lived the evolution, and you've become the one case they'll never, ever solve.